It was a quiet Christmas Eve in 1945 in Fayetteville, West Virginia, when the Sodder family's world was shattered. George and Jenny Sodder, Italian immigrants, had built a life for themselves and their 10 children. The festive season was in full swing, and the Sodder house was filled with excitement as the children stayed up late, giddy over the Christmas presents. But as midnight crept closer, the house fell silent as everyone prepared for bed. Little did they know, that night would mark the beginning of one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Shortly after 1:00 a.m., Jenny Sodder was jolted awake by the phone ringing. Groggily, she answered, only to hear an unfamiliar woman's voice on the other end asking for someone Jenny didn't know. The woman's laughter was strange, unsettling even, but Jenny shrugged it off as a prank. She returned to bed, but couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Moments later, she heard a loud bang on the roof followed by a rolling noise. Still, she dismissed it as a branch or an animal and drifted back to sleep. Within the hour, Jenny awoke again, this time to the unmistakable smell of smoke. Panicked, she woke her husband, George, and raced to save their children. In the chaos, they managed to get 4 of them, Sylvia, Marion, George Jr., and John, out of the house. But 5 of their children, Morris, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, remained trapped inside. George's desperate attempts to rescue his children quickly turned nightmarish. The ladder he always kept by the house was gone, and when he tried to start his trucks to use them as a platform to reach the attic, neither would start, even though they had been working perfectly earlier that day. With no way to reach his children, George and Jenny were left standing helplessly as flames engulfed their home. They could only watch in horror as the house burned to the ground. But when dawn broke and the fire finally subsided, the mystery deepened. Firefighters, who arrived hours too late, found no trace of the missing children. Not a single bone or fragment remained in the ashes. How could 5 children simply vanish without a trace? The official explanation was that the fire had burned too hot, completely incinerating the children's bodies. Yet Jenny couldn't accept this. In the days that followed, she conducted her own experiments, burning animal bones to see if they would disintegrate as completely. But no matter how long or hot the fire, the bones always remained. This only fueled the Sodders' growing suspicion. Something was terribly wrong. George had recently been threatened by a salesman who told him, "Your house is going to go up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed." The threat seemed tied to George's outspoken criticism of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, which had angered some in the local community. Days before the fire, strange men had been spotted near the house, and one of the older Sodder boys reported being followed home from school by a man in a car. In the aftermath, more strange clues surfaced. The family's phone line, initially thought to have been destroyed in the fire, was found to have been cut. The missing ladder was discovered tossed down an embankment near the house. And then there was the strange object Jenny had heard hit the roof. Days later, the children found it in the yard, a rubber device resembling a type of incendiary bomb. The Sodders became convinced that their children hadn't died in the fire but had been abducted. They hired private investigators and even erected a massive billboard along Route 16, offering a reward for any information about the missing children. Over the years, they received countless tips and sightings. Some claimed to have seen the children in a car the night of the fire. Others reported seeing them with unfamiliar adults at a hotel. In 1968, the Sodders received a mysterious letter containing a photograph of a young man who bore a striking resemblance to their missing son, Louis. The back of the photo was cryptically labeled, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie." George and Jenny hired a private detective to follow up on this lead, but the investigator vanished, and the trail went cold once again. Despite their relentless search, the Sodders never found their children. George died in 1969, and Jenny in 1989, both having spent their lives seeking answers. Their youngest daughter, Sylvia, who was just a toddler when the fire broke out, continued the search into her adulthood determined to uncover what happened to her siblings. To this day, the fate of Morris, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty remains a mystery. Did they perish in the fire, their remains inexplicably erased by the flames? Or were they taken that night, their lives hidden away from the family who never stopped looking for them? The disappearance of the Sodder children is a haunting reminder that some questions are never fully answered, and some stories never reach their conclusion. But perhaps you can help piece together this unsolved mystery. Do you have a theory? Could the truth still be out there, waiting to be uncovered? The Sodders never gave up hope. And maybe, just maybe, the answers are still waiting to be found.